folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa here on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network. Well, it's been quite the long day thus far. I think we've done, 3 broadcasts already with news and events on the election upcoming in South Africa's municipal elections. But hey, let's shift focus right now to a topic that you know is near and dear to my heart for the Rugby Ascendant segment of this program, which will also later be loaded up onto the Rugby Ascendant channel, which stands alone. But hey, none other than USA Rugby legend, Hall of Famer. This guy has got more caps than any Eagle in the history of the United States, despite the fact I think he probably should have got a few more caps. He was cheated at it, but we may or may not talk about that. But none other than Todd Clever, 76 caps to his name, plus 24 appearances as a sevens player, puts him at the triple mark with 100 appearances. Todd, it is a pleasure to have you on. Now, he's at the airport, folks, so he's really gone out of his way to accommodate us. Todd, welcome. How's it going?
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Yeah. I'm at the airport ready to board my flight. I was at the USA All Blacks game yesterday, so it made me get here on time, so thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. Hey, we're going to talk about a number of things, but let's start with that right away. A very kind headline in The Guardian today about the game yesterday, saying it's a win for World Rugby, which I think is one of the big takeaways away from this. We won't spend a lot of time talking about the fact that it seemed like that once they got past the initial line, our defense was like melted butter yesterday, and the All Blacks exploited it. But you know what? To be fair, the All Blacks do that to everybody. And every time they play the Springboks, I'm like, you cannot let them get past that first line. You've got to take them out right there. Otherwise, they're going to beat you because they'll get in space. But yesterday, a win for World Rugby. And hey, the Eagles got their first tries ever against the All Blacks, 2 of them. Nate Augsburger. Wow, I thought that was going to be called back for obstruction. I thought that Nate Brakeley was going to be called for getting in the way of Sam Whitelock there, but they didn't call it. I was like, hold my breath, because you should have heard me. I'm going to download the audio because I do reaction commentary. My reaction, like just screaming as he was going across to the game. And then, of course, I think Ryan Mattis had a brilliant try in the second half, although I do think that his shorts were in touch. I'll leave it at that.
Man, whose side are you on? No, it was great. It was great to have both those. I mean, both those guys are, residents in San Diego, MLR standouts, and having us score tries and the crowd going crazy. And I think it was a win for rugby. I mean, I met so many people. That was the first time experiencing live rugby and introducing them to, the All Blacks and the world's best and the Haka and sort of the potential where the sport can be. I think that's what we need to take away, and that's what we need to focus on.
Well, it's interesting because a couple things that stand out for me aside from the game. Now, in the pregame, last week in the press conference, when I spoke to Bryce Campbell and also to well, it wasn't Sam White. It was Sam Kane. Excuse me. I started saying, Sam Kane was listed as captain last week. When we had Sam Kane and we had Bryce Campbell on there, I asked Bryce. I said, one of the things that a lot of people aren't familiar with rugby are going to get to see is the haka, and it's before the game, but it is such a big part of the game because it sets the stage. Whether it's Tonga or it's Fiji or it's the All Blacks, who of course we know for it. Was it just me? You were there, or was this haka seem more special? It seemed like the All Blacks were really into this haka. You could just see it in their faces. Maybe I'm just imagining that, but it really seemed like a pretty cool haka.
Yeah, I mean, I've faced the haka many times, and being in front of it before the challenge, and then yesterday I was on the field level, being there, and I mean, it's always electric, and you saw the passion that the challenge that they laid down, and the crowd loved it. So it was definitely an experience for everybody, the players on both sides of the teams, and then all the fans.
Well, and after the game, the All Blacks players were chanting USA, USA. That was pretty bizarre and pretty interesting to say the least.
I didn't see that, sorry, but maybe it was after swapping jerseys.
It was after the swapping jerseys. Yeah, that was exactly right. That's when it happened. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Okay.
Oh, not the best signal there. Are you back?
Very cool. Enjoying myself. I'm sorry, I lost you.
No, it's all right. Just you were saying?
No. I was I missed that part of it, but that is one of the great things about rugby is after that 80 minutes is done, you definitely have that respect for the other nation.
Well, I have to say that, it's not often that I enjoy a game in which the opponent scores 16 tries. But I have to say that despite the fact that more than once I was doing this, I actually enjoyed the game. What about yourself? Was it an interesting environment to see them there at FedEx Field?
I mean, it's you're playing against the world's best, so it's always going to be a challenge. But like I said before, I mean, being around the sport and being around that environment with people that are potential sponsors, that are sponsors, that have some skin in the game, that we want to educate as many fans, future fans, corporations to get behind the sport, because the more support that we have, the easier and the faster we'll be able to close that gap.
Well, I think that's actually critically important. And in some ways, this was kind of, at least from my perspective, an unofficial launch for the USA's bid to get one of the three upcoming Rugby World Cups, one of the women's and two of the men's. And so this really is an effort by USA Rugby and by the country to get one of these World Cups here. I think that's a key component going forward. What do you think would happen if we managed to get those? With the women's, the impact, I think, would be less. No slight on the women, but the number of people who attend that is far smaller. It's not quite the world spectacle, although I've been to the last two Women's World Cups. Not quite the world spectacle the men's is. But what do you think the impact would be if we could actually get the World Cup here in the U.S. in 31 or 35 or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe numbers, it's smaller, but I think the significance is just as great. So I think that's what we really need to drive for, is sort of that inclusion and diversity of our sport. And I want the Women's World Cup just as bad as I want the Men's World Cup. That's it's the fastest growing team sport in America, women's rugby. So we need to celebrate that. We need to give them, the biggest stage. And then on the back of that, it would just be, game changing for, boys and girls to have a world stage and the third largest sporting event in the world on our shores, to have us, compete against the best in some of those stadiums and have it across the country. It would be amazing. And I mean, obviously look at the stats and the data that happened in Japan for 2019. If we're able to go on par or beat that, World Rugby would definitely be happy, and then the rest would be history, and move aside as sort of, we wouldn't be a minnow anymore. Major League Rugby would capitalize on it. Youth would capitalize on it. I think our national team obviously would as well.
Well, you use a word that I use that some people frown upon, because that's your old school. You've been around for a few years doing this, but the phrase minnow, I've used that before, and no, it's tier 2, not minnow. But let's be honest here, it's a challenge, But we are seeing some great opportunities here. I mean, when we had a test season in which the Eagles have played England, Ireland, and the All Blacks all in the same season, that's unheard of. I mean, one of the complaints I've had about World Rugby for years is that the minnows, or the tier 2 teams and those further down, never get to play against the top competition until the World Cup. And then it's like, the Springboks 87, the Velviches 0, in Auckland. I was there for that game, by the way, in 2011. I enjoyed it, but it felt bad for the Namibia fans. It was pretty tough. I mean, so this has been a pretty incredible year, although people may look at the log and go 2 wins against 5 losses. Maybe there's a lot more to be learned here from this test season than just the scoreboard. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can put on different hats. As a player, you want to play against the best, and you want to play as often as possible, and you want to make sure that there's a calendar set. USA Rugby has its challenges with working with World Rugby and other nations on making sure that we have a calendar. We just need to make sure that we don't disrupt what we're having and building on our shores, and having it, having our test matches going inside of MLR. So we want to, constantly, have a good calendar where, our guys are playing year round, but they're also getting enough rest, and give them the best opportunity to perform. I mean, this game yesterday, it was outside of the window, so we're missing some of our top players. But what an opportunity to have some of our local grown talent that are playing on our shores. But we need to we need to keep on working all unison. If that's with World Rugby, USA Rugby, Major League Rugby, and making sure that calendar's right, so we can perform better and keep on achieving good results and many more results.
You made a good point there, which I think not a lot of people will realize is that this was outside the international test window. We see next week the Springboks will be playing in Europe, and then we see the All Blacks also going there. So it was out of the window, but some great opportunity for some debutantes to get their first cap. That was pretty cool to see out there. It was interesting as the game progressed. What takeaways would you take from this game as a fan? All right. I mean, you're a player. You're a person involved in the community in many respects. You got your foundation, but as a fan, what would you take away from this game yesterday? Because if you look at the scoreboard, you're like, what can I take away from this? But there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you're watching on TV, on a computer, if you were there live. Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm sure you were entertained. That's for sure. I mean, even if you're rooting for USA, cheering for USA, and you saw all the tries come in. I mean, you got to understand the brilliance of all the hard work tries and just finesse that they had. I mean, All Blacks are another level. I mean, sometimes it looks like you're playing against 25 players rather than 15, just with the support and everybody's knowing the role, doing the role, and running those lines. So it was really impressive to see. So you just saw some some of the commentators at Champagne Rugby.
Well, I have to say that it's always the frustrating thing because look, this is not a secret to my support audience. I cannot stand the All Blacks. I'm just it's like the Dallas Cowboys. You got to be a hater on the best team out there. Although technically it's still the Springboks. But anyway, but seriously, I have nothing but respect for them. And yesterday I'm like, no, this scrum they're gonna get it out wide. They're gonna score. But little did I know they're gonna take it on the short side of the field and stretch down. There goes Bowden Barrett. It was. They get space and they know. And every time that they're going, there's always 3 or 4 guys trailing on lines. They're right behind them. And so you really are in a tough spot here when you play the All Blacks. You can't let them get any space. But the Eagles never gave up. They played really hard. And I think that a couple players had outstanding days that I'd like to point out. Hanko Hammershøis, I thought, had a brilliant game. Also, Luke Carty had a pretty good game, although he looked a bit tired late in the game. He's kicking the ball so much there, trying to get down the 5-meter line. But I think he had a really good game. His line drive kicks, I think, are pretty good rather than those high ones people are arching up there. And then Nick Civetta, he must have had 7,000 tackles. At least that's what it looked like.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to point out, just congratulations for the new debutants, coming. Hopefully they'll get many more. It's a game that they'll always remember, and it's a game that everybody on that field will remember, and especially the coaching staff and management. I mean, it's a very enjoyable thing. So I just want them and to enjoy it and soak it in, because it's one of those games that you'll never forget.
Well, here's a question for one of my viewers, and here's I'm not reticent to ask a question. I'm never reticent to ask any question, but let me frame it first, okay, Todd? So, of course, I'm a major supporter of Major League Rugby, as I know you are. I don't know if you have an official role working with Major League Rugby, so I don't want to put you on the spot. That's why I said let me frame it. So my guest asked the question, which is a fair question. Todd's thoughts on artificial turf, NFL players dropping like flies. Well, we saw in the United Rugby Championship, Johan Hussen went down with an ACL or MCL injury that was clearly attributed to turf. Turf is tough, but the reason I don't want to put Todd on the spot is that Major League Rugby plays on a lot of artificial turfs at the moment, and I'm not a fan. I imagine most rugby players aren't. I remember watching Peaches, Mike Petrie, up there in Coney Island coming off those turf burns that first season when they played on a baseball field. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's in. Then you saw everybody starting to tape up after that. But do you want to comment on the artificial turf as a player, or any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, they're getting better. Technology and the player welfare is getting better, but there's definitely got to be a level of newness. What G you're allowed play, but some of those that they're letting them play on Major League Rugby or training, it's just not safe. So I think World Rugby, MLR Rugby, any of the professional, they should definitely be graded and agreed on. Is this safe? Is this going to be okay? I know that they brought in, you can wear tights now for it. I mean, I enjoy playing on turf and training. Not every single day of the week, but if it's a couple times, what's going to happen. But after a while of training on it, even it's a bit tough. Playing on it, it's not ideal, but you get some that's kind of how it is, but it's definitely got to be a quality. You got to play on the quality stuff.
Well, actually, Atlanta has a pretty good quality artificial turf. That's a pretty good one of the better ones. I've seen that a few times down there. Now, I haven't seen this in a while. Deborah Morey, who's in South Africa, says, "Captain America, well done for recognizing and encouraging the newbies." Wow, that's a nice statement there. Haven't heard that nickname called out in a while. So listen, Todd. It's interesting with what's been happening here. I've been telling people that rugby is serious. It's been a serious thing in the States for a long time. But for the longest time, of course, we didn't have professional rugby. Pro rugby was a one-season effort to try it, and now we've got Major League Rugby. But prior to that, rugby's always been big at the club level and at university here in the States, and people outside the U.S. didn't realize that. But you know that. And now we have Major League Rugby. We have professional sport, and hopefully it'll continue. Just completed its first season where they had 2 full conferences and able to have a championship from 2 conference winners, Atlanta and LA, with some big names playing on both sides. What do you think about the sport of rugby? Is it in good shape in the States? I know you said earlier it's the fastest growing course. It really is the fastest growing team sport in the world, not just the USA. Where are we going with rugby in the US? Is it going to keep getting bigger? Are we going to have a big explosion one day?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think rugby in America is in an interesting space, and it can go either ways. I always knew we're missing a huge piece of our puzzle for the national team to be successful and for us to take it serious, and that was professional rugby. And Major League Rugby is picking up. We have great owners in each of the franchises that not only have good rugby hearts, but they have great rugby and business minds that need to take it forward. So, sometimes in the past or some organizations, it's just all rugby love and you have a little bit. Now that these franchises and, if it's, George Kilbrew in the main office, if it's commercial, down in Dallas, and then all working together with all the franchises, I think they need to, continue to work on their community, get more boys and girls playing the sport, build that fan base, and it'll trickle down. But that's a major thing is focus on the grassroots and community, and then create a lot of fans.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because I've seen that with Old Glory, DC, and also with Rugby ATL, a clear effort to connect with communities, develop youth, and really focus on that. Another thing I noticed with Major League Rugby this year is that they went to great lengths to bring in some really competent, qualified, experienced officiating, to advise that. So Jonathan Kaplan came in this year to help improve the officiating, and some others. And I'm not to criticize previous officiating, but I think there was a clear quality improvement over the level of officiating this season over the past couple of years, and it only looks like it's on an upward trajectory. So you've got this involvement with the community and also improving the quality of the officiating. Any thoughts on both those topics?
Yeah, I mean, with rugby, and it's tough. I definitely know that's a huge component of growing it and consistency. More players. We need better facilities. We need coaches, and then refereeing is being one of them. So Kappa has done really great. I've had a lot of conversations, and he's dedicated to North American rugby on improving that, and hosting clinics and doing these things to grow the depth of it, introducing it, and excelling it. So he's doing great. I mean, I remember being ref by him in South Africa in Super Rugby, and he was always one of the top guys, and it's so great to have him as a resource.
Well, actually, that kind of segues right into what I was going to talk about next, and that's that he's no stranger to you because you played around the world. You played in South Africa. Now, Paulie, who is a firefighter in South Africa and a longtime loyal viewer of this program, said that he had many a cold beer with Todd, Baywatch Grubler, Skop, and Anton van Zyl at the Jolly Roger and Colony Arms during your time with the Lions.
Oh man, bringing back good memories. Yeah, good old Jolly Rogers. Jolly Rogers was a great establishment, and it was 47 steps from my front door. And
not that you counted the steps.
Oh, well, that was my pickup line. It's only 47 steps back. So no, it was. I love my time in South Africa. Thanks, Paulie.
No, that's brilliant. It's interesting because South Africans, they're connected. They know people. Now that also it gives me a good segue to get to the next part I want to talk about, Todd, is that not only have you played in South Africa in Super Rugby, which almost no Americans can lay claim to that, but you also play for Newcastle, which is pretty impressive, a great club. And you also, if I'm not mistaken, play for Suntory over in Japan. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's total of 5 years in Japan. So 2 years with Suntory, won some championships there, and then moved over to NTT Communications. So yeah, I had a big stint after South Africa before New Zealand or Newcastle.
Well, let me ask you this question, because you and a handful of other players like AJ McGinty and a few others have actually gotten that exposure and played overseas. But was it tough for you coming up as a young rugby player to get someone's attention, to give you a chance to make it overseas? Because now that we have Major League Rugby, I suspect that we're going to see in the future some North Americans getting poached by Curry Cup and by the Mitre, which is no longer the Mitre in New Zealand, maybe, and also maybe even by Premiership and URC in Europe. I think that's going to be a possibility. But in the past, it was really tough for Americans to get any attention by international clubs. What are your thoughts on it? How did it work out for you? Because not a lot of Americans have that experience overseas.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely tough. I mean, I was always up against it and being the underdog and proving myself to the coaches, prove myself to my teammates, prove myself to the media and the league. So I was never in a comfortable position having a starting position. It was always a grind, and I enjoyed it. You know, I love that challenge. So for future guys deciding if they're going to stay in MLR, having opportunity overseas, you know, where it could be more financial or it could be, you know, more exciting. And that, for me, I just love the culture of rugby and, you know, playing professional and playing overseas, living, you know, in New Zealand, South Africa, Japan, England, and back in the States. I mean, it was my favorite thing to experience different cultures, to meet different backgrounds and eat different foods and just be kind of a rugby nomad while getting paid all right. So I loved it, but it was definitely big challenges.
Well, that's it. You know, you talk about the different cultures and traveling around the world. That's one of the cool things about rugby. It really is that kind of sport where it lends itself to that. I had never been to Japan. I've been all over the world, lived all over Africa, all over Europe, and never been to Japan. But of course, I made plans for 2019, and I was there for a month. I wrote 12 stories covering it. I didn't even go as a journalist, although I did that, but I went as a fan. And I had 18 matches, but I lost my Italy and All Blacks match to Typhoon Hagibis because it was canceled. But 17 matches. I always do the pool stage. I don't stay for the knockout because for me, I'd rather listen to it on TV than be there unless it's a championship game. But I really was impressed by Japan. I knew I would be, but I was even more impressed than I thought it would be. What a well-run country where things just work and you can get things done. Now, I felt pretty crowded. Everywhere I went, it was like, man, there's like a lot of people around me. But what was your time like in Japan? Obviously, you must have enjoyed it. You spent 5 years there.
Yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, so playing Super Rugby, finishing up a season, and I had a 3-year extension in South Africa, you know, offer. And then Eddie Jones came up and offered me, you know, a 2-year contract with Suntory. So I, you know, went there. I was going to come back to South Africa, but, you know, just financially, how it worked calendar-wise of being able to be with the U.S. team, not miss any games. And that was a big decision of, you know, staying on and playing with the Eagles. But the country, the people, the food, I mean, timely matter. I mean, I grew a lot as a man there and making sure that, you know, the precision of timely matter, of working hard for it. I took a lot of pages out of their book, you know, for that success that's helping me business-wise now, helping me with my foundation, and ultimately, you know, hopefully being a husband and father of giving back in all calendars. So a lot of credit to the Japanese way.
Well, so that was quite a maturation process for you as a man.
What was that? Sorry?
I said it was quite a maturation process for you as a man, your time in Japan.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I lived there 5 years, more there than anywhere else in my other contracts.
Well, you know, it's I'm sure that Eddie Jones didn't let you get by with anything easy. I mean, he's quite an impressive coach. He's won everywhere he's gone. You know, when you weren't with the Eagles in 2015, but I was at that final game when the Eagles played against Japan. And at that game, Eddie Jones had just been hired by Western Province to coach the Stormers in Western Province. And I'm a huge Province fan. Sorry, Lions fans. I'm a Province fan. But anyway, so when I was sitting in the middle of the pitch, just below the booths. And as Eddie Jones came up to go to the booth, he walked by and said, Eddie, hey, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you signing Western Province. I'm so excited. Of course, I think he probably already knew that he had the offer from England and he was going to back out of the Western Province. So, but he didn't let that out, obviously. So, but yeah, so that I saw him there at that game. And then a couple of days later, later, I found out that England hired. I'm like, well, hey, I feel for Stuart Lancaster. He's a quality coach, but England probably need to go a different direction after the results 2015. And look where they went, man. They've it's been gangbusters. Eddie Jones just is a winner everywhere he goes.
Yeah, he definitely stirs up the pot, and he expects the best out of everybody. If that's the water boy, the players, his assistant coaches, management. So he expects a lot, and spending a couple of years with them, winning a few championships with them, trophies. He's definitely a class act, and still very close with them and in contact with them now. So it's he's a amazing coach and a great guy.
Well, listen, I think he might have some challenges, getting the most out of every water boy. I think Rossi Erasmus would have his own views as a water boy.
Yeah, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but that's what makes him Eddie.
No, I'm making a joke about the British and Irish Lions series where Rossi Erasmus went out there as a water boy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, let's shift gears a little bit real quick, Todd, because I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your foundation. You've got a foundation, the Todd Clever Foundation, if I got the name correct, and I don't think a whole lot of people know it. It's certainly not globally. Can you tell us a little bit about what the foundation is and what you hope to achieve with it?
Yeah, being part of rugby and what rugby's given me, I have an absolute pleasure, and I'm so honored to be able to give back to the sport. So, it's uniting and supporting rugby, and giving jersey grants, ball grants, giving scholarships, domestic and overseas, and just really being a pillar of and being acts of service. I've sat on the board for USA Rugby. I did a lot of work for World Rugby and Olympic stuff. And if you're just one person and you have an idea, you want to do something, there's a lot of things and barriers and things to get things done. But so if I wanted to create my own thing, have a small board and make a bigger impact on the smaller things. So like I said before, really focus on inclusion and diversity, really getting in our inner cities across America, getting a lot of balls out there, working with schools and making rugby, achievable and open up the doors and to see the world. So I just have a huge passion for it. And it's been, received with open arms and with Major League Rugby, with USA Rugby and that. So it's a great pleasure to do this.
Oh, that's awesome. There's a couple of the ones that have been around a bit that are maybe better known by some folks out there, and that's like girls rugby and play rugby, both of which try to expand access to the game. And frankly, I'm all for that. I think it's a great idea. Honestly, I wish in rural Appalachia there had been rugby when I was a kid. When I went to Ohio University as a freshman, one of the upperclassmen said to me on a Friday, he said, "You coming to the game tonight?" And I'm like, "Games tomorrow." He goes, "They're not football." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Rugby?" Man, I'm from Appalachia. We're just happy with paved roads and electricity. That's kind of new to us. But and that's not much of a stretch, by the way, Todd. And so he's like, "No, come on down. You'll have a great time." And so I went down there. It was played on the band fields down by the river, which they put these huge banks up because it used to flood all the time. Anyway, so we're playing. It's just, where the band practices. It was marked for football. And there are no bleachers. We're standing in touch. And I didn't know what touch was at the time. I thought it was something entirely different. But anyway, standing in touch and I'm watching the game go back and forth, and this is 1982. It's a long time ago. Anyway, so Australian rules football was something Americans had just recently been introduced to because ESPN. And so I'm like, it's not Australian rules football. It's certainly not soccer. It's not football. But you know what? This is pretty cool. And I think one team won 63 to 0 or something like that. But when the game was over, everybody had a beer. They kind of, they didn't know what a braai was, but basically had a braai barbecue, and they all got along. There was no animosity. I'm like, this is a cool game. And that's kind of when I fell in love with rugby. And I'll tell you, Todd, I've never introduced anybody on the planet to the sport of rugby who didn't love the game. Not just like it, love it. Everyone you introduce to the game loves rugby. It's such a brilliant game.
Yeah, it is just the remarkable, exceptional values that the sport has, and it doesn't limit it through the field. It carries through the fans, it carries through the business of it. So, it is so great to introduce it. And just like yesterday, I was talking about it, being with people that never experienced rugby before, they're going to be fans for life. And they're going to be, checking out. Same with corporations of, seeing the teams, how they were afterwards. You don't get that in any other American sport, of that camaraderie of being together and, sharing a cold drink afterwards and shaking hands, swapping jerseys. It is really special.
Well, it's interesting because in 2011, and I don't recall if I saw you or not. If you were there that night, I think you might not. But in 20, no, I don't think. No, I don't think you were there because they were holding you back. But in 2011, because you were in 2011, you played in the 2011 Rugby World Cup. But I was in New Zealand, and I went to Wellington. And I was at Wellington. I was there for the Eagles versus Australia. Saw that game.
Yep.
And then I stayed for Scotland, Argentina, which for me was disappointing. I expected Scotland to win, but Argentina did well. And then at that game, I ran into a couple who's from Australia. They're both in the Australian Air Force, and we got to chatting. I was in the Army, so we had some common ground. And, we scored pretty early in that game, but then it was downhill after that for the Eagles game. But anyway, so we had a good time, and it's a long walk back from the stadium. We walked back downtown. I was staying at the Moray Hotel, which is where the Argentine team was. And this guy was telling me, I know the captain of the team. And I'm thinking, you're from Australia. How do you know the American captain? Well, because it was Tim Loyce or Hughes or what his name is, something like that.
USAS.
Yes. Yeah, he was the captain that night.
He captained that game, that Australian game.
Right, but I guess one of his parents is Australian or something like that. Anyway, or he lived in Australia or something. I don't know the story, but anyway, the guy claimed he knew the captain. I'm like, I think Todd Clever's the captain. You know Todd Clever? I didn't ask that. So we walked back down, and then I think he's just a BSer. He's just feeding me a line of crap, right? So we go to an Irish pub. We're having a good time there. We're having a blast at the Irish pub. Oh, your camera disappeared on us. There it is. So we're having a good time at the Irish pub, and he's like, "Hey, listen, you want to meet the team?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to meet the team." You know the team. Well, I'd love to meet the team. Anyway, so the captain. So it seems like it's just nonsense. He's like texting, "Oh no, they're busy right now. They're not back to the hotel yet." And so we have several beers and pints, at the hotel, and it's only a few hundred meters from my hotel, so I can stumble back. And then I'm like, "Okay, it's been great meeting this couple, but you guys have a good time." And as we walk out of the pub, he's like, "Oh no, hey, they're there. They're back at the hotel. They're downstairs. You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay. What have I got to lose?" So we walk to the hotel, which is a bit further than my hotel, and we walk in, and the Eagles are there. I got to meet all these Eagles. I got a picture of the whole bunch of Eagles that night. It was really cool. And I don't know if it's that game or the next game after, but they held you out of the game because they thought we had a real good chance of defeating Italy in was it Hamilton? Not Hamilton.
Nelson, I think.
Nelson, not Hamilton. Nelson, I'm sorry. Yeah, Nelson, yeah. In Nelson, yeah, on the South Island. And so I went to that game, and we didn't win, but I think, is that the sequence? You didn't play that the game before that?
Yeah, they rested a few of us because they wanted us. It was only a 3-day turnaround.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of hard thing with World Cups. You kind of don't get, the top seeds get the best matches, most rested, but we had that, so they wanted to keep a few of us fresh, and because if we won 2 games, then we automatically qualify for the World Cup, the following one. So that's still our goal to do.
Well, you guys, I think, beat Russia in that World Cup, and then you were trying to get that chance to beat Italy in Nelson. Yeah, it was a great evening. I really enjoyed my flight down to Nelson, and I had a good time. But I thought I had really good seats. I bought some good seats, and I was about 2 rows up on the pitch. It turns out my seats weren't that great because some guy wearing a security jacket was obstructing my view the whole damn game.
That's it.
Yeah, no, he's standing right there to feel like, could you just move? I'm trying to get some photos here for this experience. But so what was it like for you, a chance to play in Rugby World Cup? Was that kind of a lifelong dream or what?
Yeah, I mean, being part of 3 World Cups, 2003 when I was 20 years old, and, basically being holding bags and living it and learning a lot. And then 2007, that really made my mark and was a starter then, and that changed my life because it gave me the opportunity to play Super Rugby and make a name for myself. And then 2011, captaining the team to New Zealand, and I already spent a couple of years there, so it was really great to go back home, my second home then, and see my old teammates and friends and coaches and really be part of a Rugby World Cup in New Zealand. That was like no other. So it was a huge honor to play in each of those and obviously the captain.
Well, I have to say, we're talking about Rugby World Cups, and you mentioned the Women's World Cup. We both did earlier. And I've been to every World Cup since 2011. New Zealand 2011, England 2015, New Zealand in 2011, Paris in 2014 for the women, 15 England for the men, 17 in Ireland for the women, 18 for the sevens, and then 19 in Japan. And I would have to say, from my experience, it's been building on success after success after success. The spectacle has been better and better. The women's in Paris was okay, but the women's in Ireland was brilliant, and I'm sure it's going to be even better next time. The men's was great. I mean, the best part about 2011 for me, having traveled, were the volunteers. all the people with the teal jackets on, they were brilliant. The Kiwis who help people find things, telling about local stuff, they were unbelievable. I wanted one of those teal jackets. I couldn't get one because they only gave them to volunteers. They weren't for sale. but those people were fantastic. In England was fantastic because the spectacle, all the media, the massive crowds. I was at the largest attended ever Rugby World Cup game, not the largest ever rugby attending game, but that was Romania versus Ireland. That was unbelievable. Really enjoyed it. 82,000 plus fans there. And then in Japan, Japan, they just brought it. Everything was brilliant about Japan. And so it's a real challenge for the next World Cup in France. They're going to really have to step up.
They'll do a great job. They took a chance on Japan and look how much it paid off, because they announced it both the time. They're like, oh, we'll see how it goes with Japan, because we know we'll make so much money in France, and it'll be a success. And it was great in 2007, so it will be great. I'm definitely will be there, and the French will do it great, and then hopefully we can lock down. I know Australia wants it. I don't know if for that 27 we bid for it, but I'm really hoping that we get a couple of those, one women and one men's.
Well, in fact, speaking of the women's is supposed to be going right now, but because of the pandemic, it's been delayed for a year in New Zealand. Otherwise, I would probably be in New Zealand right now covering that. But that should be quite the spectacle too. A lot of folks outside the U.S. don't know that our women's Eagles, they're tough. They're up there. They just missed finishing on the podium there in the last World Cup. They lost to France and finished fourth. Quite impressive. A lot of talent there.
Yeah, our women are amazing. And I know it's even closing the gap with that. And the sevens, being full time Olympic team. So yeah, hopefully we can continue and have both teams on the podium.
Well, Hank Adrian-Say is just Todd. I realize that you're standing in the hallway there. Are you inside the gate, or you're still waiting to check in?
No. I'm checked in. I'm just.
Are you through? Not to disclose in a secret, undisclosed location, but are you through security already? I don't want to make you miss your flight.
I'm through security. I'm through security. I see them lining up to board pretty soon.
Okay, so we're going to cut it here a little bit short because I don't want you to miss your flight. Then I'll never get you back on the program. But Hank Adrian-Say, who's in South Africa, says, Chris, as you know, Todd was my favorite USA player of all time. Great sevens player, he has to say. And we haven't really talked about that. I want to ask you before you go a couple things. Sevens. Look, when I came back from Ethiopia a few years ago to work at the Army War College, I was 50 at the time, and it wasn't that long ago. but I contacted a local rugby club because I wanted to help them, raise money, or maybe be an assistant coach, or do something to help them out. And they were like thrilled to have me. And I told them I came from Africa and I'd been involved in rugby there, and they're like, would you play on our sevens team? I'm like, I'm 50. Are you high? Come on, man. At 35, I'd still consider, pick up sevens, but it's a track meet. That's a young man's game, to say the least. Did you enjoy your sevens time? You've got 24 appearances for USA. It must have been really exciting for you.
Yeah, I love being in the sevens, especially the 15s. Whenever we had a different kind of coaching, a different kind of culture within the team. It was a really big, change of pace, with 15's team. Then I felt that it was very cliquey, and there was, and I didn't really fit in. I was kind of a misfit, outlander sort of kind of character with long hair, and everybody else is either, sort of a military background or cow background or professional, and it was just me, a young guy. And then when I went to the sevens, it was only, 12 guys that toured. We all fit in a 15-passenger van. We all listened to the same music. We all did everything else. So it was completely opposite, and I really, enjoyed it. And then that was my whole thing, is like when I go back to the 15s and when I kind of got that leadership role, it's like, we got to clear this culture, and we got to make sure that there isn't any cliques. We don't want to have, the Pacific Islanders be together. We don't want to have the professionals be together. We don't want to have, all the same things. So that was a big challenge, being a leader there, of really focusing on like, all right, what is our goal? What is our mission statement? What's our vision on this? So, to break that down. So, and then that was, just surrounding and traveling the world doing both. But then on the field, I really, focused bringing my 15s game into the sevens, bring that physicality, I go forward. And then with 15s, I brought in my sevens game of, the space and running lines and really being, having that. So it really shaped me as a player to be, to play both. And And, for a few years, anytime that the USA called, if it was sevens or 15s or, camps, I was just, yes, I want to be part of it. It was just all about, wearing that USA jersey and representing our country. So, fortunate to play so many times for both sevens and 15s.
Well, last few questions here in a moment, but sevens physicality. Danny Barrett, Werner Koch, boy, those guys bring it. There's some tough hitters there. So, last couple of questions. Did you overlap and play with Dolan Stanford in sevens, or was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good old Stanny. Yeah, he was great. I mean, he was kind of the team clown, and we always knew he was going to be a commentator, and he's just world class. He's a hilarious guy.
He just makes up those nicknames off the cuff. I just keep coming. Okay, so last two questions really quick, then we'll let you get down your flight there. The first one is favorite memory from playing sevens. You got a favorite moment or memory from your sevens career?
I think whenever they had the tournament in Wellington at the Cake Tin, the crowd was insane. So the Fun Fleece there, and after the tournament, joining the crowd and really enjoying it because that stadium is just perfect. It's just walkable, and the whole thing. Either that or playing in the World Cup in Dubai for the sevens. My debut tournament in Hong Kong, which was so amazing, and get my first sevens game against New Zealand. So I mean, there's so many good ones, but I mean, my favorite tournament I think probably would have been at the Cake Tin in Wellington.
That's awesome. Wellington's a brilliant town. I absolutely love my time there. I spent almost a week there when I was in New Zealand for that World Cup. So the favorite, now I'll say Eagles, and because it might be the same, might be different. Favorite Eagles memory, or if it's the same, or favorite also rugby union 15s playing, because you played so many places. So if it's two different memories, that's great. But if it's the same one because it's Eagles, that's fine. But just
I mean, the thing is, there's so many great memories on the field and traveling the world from sevens, like I mentioned. But 15s probably, my first start at a World Cup in 2007. We played against England. And massive stadium, and just how there's 90%, 95% English fans compared to it. So that was really memorable. Playing against South Africa in 2007 as well, and scoring the try of the tournament, try of the year. That was exciting to be part of that phase of play. And then probably my last game as well, being in my hometown. Beating Canada, put 50 points on Canada. And qualifying as America's one for the first time, and retiring on that phase, and having my daughter and my family all there supporting, and friends. So that was a good way. And a lot of people, my parents were probably the first ones to be like, "Don't retire, play a couple more years for the next World Cup." But I knew in my heart and my soul is like it's time to pass the torch, and to be from a player to a captain to a fan. So how I can do that to support the team in any way was a good way to bow out.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks so much. Those qualifiers where the Eagles got that number one qualifier for the first time, which now we've relinquished it to Uruguay, unfortunately, but we could still get in against the Condors next spring. But I was in Hamilton for that game, which I thought the Eagles were going to take. I had, once again, a good position. I thought I didn't have a good position. I was at the end of the field, but it turns out most of the game was played right in front of me, and it wound up being 28-28 tie, as I recall, in Hamilton. Then you guys went out there to California and sealed it and got that number one bid, which was pretty exciting. It was a good way to go out, Todd, from that career as an Eagle. Listen, I really appreciate you coming in the program. It's a pleasure to have you on. You're a great spokesman for rugby. When I think of Rugby South Africa, and they've got a great spokesman, of course, in Brian Habana. I think for USA Rugby, you're a great spokesperson. Whether you're hired in that capacity or not, you're a great advocate for the game, an accomplished player, and I'm sure you'll be accomplished in all the things you do supporting the game after this. Thank you so much for coming on the program, and you're invited back on any time. I'd love to have you back on the program, and we could talk about some other things. But thank you so much, and I want to wish you a safe flight. With that, any last comments you'd like to share with the audience? Because I do have an international audience from around the world. Many know rugby, but a lot of folks in the States unfamiliar with it. Honestly, a number of my viewers only watch my rugby broadcasts because they like to hear from me, and so they're learning about the game. So anything that you'd like to leave our audience with, Todd, before you get on your flight?
No. I mean, it's just thanks for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it. And, I really was great connecting with you in Atlanta face to face, and I'm glad to be here. And I definitely want to join in. Next time I won't be on the move. I'll be in my own home office and not hold my phone. So hopefully the coverage was okay. But thanks again so much for having me.
No, the coverage is fine. And I was going to lay that comment out there to let people know that Todd is holding, I don't even know if he has a selfie stick. He's holding up his phone. So it just shows you this oak is still fit because he's not, his arm isn't getting tired holding the phone up. That's why I realized that when I saw the little barriers over there when the camera slid over. I'm like, he's actually standing there holding the phone. So that's the other reason why I want to get him on the flight. So you don't walking around with a crippled arm the rest of the day. All right.
Exactly.
Todd Clever, thank you very much. As they say in parts of South Africa, ke alaba. Bye, donkey.
Bye, donkey.
All right, folks, we'll get him out of there. That's Todd Clever. Let him get on his flight. Brilliant. Really appreciate it. Todd, I'll put you in the waiting room. You can drop off when you're ready. All right, folks, that's Todd Clever, USA rugby legend. 76 caps, all-time leading caps for the Eagles, and 24 appearances on the 7 squad. And as you heard, he played with Dolan Stanford, one of our favorite folks here on the program. Thank you so much, Todd, for joining us, and have a safe flight back home. And, he was here in D.C. for the Eagles and All Blacks game. That was pretty cool. Debbie says, oh, my God, that's so true. He's done his weight training with cell phone. Bless him. That's right. Yeah, that just shows you what a generous person. It's kind of like I'm not trying to compare myself, but it's like myself. I give interviews to people as long as they're reasonable people, anytime, anywhere, and I'll go to great lengths to make sure I can provide for them. And I've done that myself. Held my phone up, and I know it gets quite tiring after a while to hold that phone up. So thank you so much for that, Todd Clever, for joining us. It was a brilliant conversation. I really enjoyed it. Once again, the Indaba Conversation with Chris. This was the Rugby Ascendant segment, folks. I will do a Night Owls tonight since we didn't do a news broadcast today. And I'll do that because I'm not going to have Night Owls during the week this week. Once again, I'm doing consulting services, so I won't be available to do it during the week. I will do a Night Owls in a couple of hours. It's now 7:25 in South Africa, 13:25 here in the East Coast of the United States. So at 21:35 and at 15:35, Night Owls right here on Chris Wyatt Africa. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't been watching the channel, you should go back and watch my interview with Rafile from the Democratic Alliance, the mayoral candidate for Ekurhuleni there in Gauteng province. It was a brilliant conversation. You should go check it out. Debbie says, you do, even in hot cars whilst in travels. Very dedicated. Thank you, Chris. Well, thank you, Debbie. I definitely try to give the audience their money's worth, even if they're not paying. Erica says, an excellent interview. Thank you so much for that. And that's it, folks. I'll be back in a couple hours with Night Owls on the night shift right here on Chris Wyatt Africa. Once again, my thanks to my guest who was brilliant, Todd Clever. Really appreciate him coming on the program. That was an awesome conversation. Thanks a lot, folks. Catch you later. Come on, smash the like button. It's free. It's right below the screen. It doesn't cost you anything. Smash the like button. Come on, you can do it. I know you want to do it. Smash the like button.